and I appreciate them very much. So I'm so grateful that they're here today discussing their businesses and also telling all of us, me included, how different aspects of business, corporate identity, web development, and copy all come into what they do, and also how they come into what everybody else as a business owner or a freelancer does as well. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our very first conversation that I'll be having with my dear friends and colleagues, Rudi Smit and Lehan Viljoen. Rudi is a graphic designer by trade, and Lehan is a web developer. And these are two people that I trust with my life, and I've trusted them with my businesses over the last 3 years. They are amazing people, wonderful to work with. They're people that I trust beyond a shadow of a doubt with everything that I do. I ask them for advice all the time, and I appreciate them very much. So I'm so grateful that they're here today discussing their businesses and also telling all of us, me included, how different aspects of business, corporate identity, web development, and copy all come into what they do, and also how they come into what everybody else as a business owner or a freelancer does as well. And the aim of this series of videos, I will have different people speaking, is to give advice, to give tips, and just generally support other people. So I am the owner of Notable Communications. Notable Communications is a business which does a couple of things. Firstly, I run online courses which aim to support people with communication. So if that's verbal communication, whether they want to improve their public speaking skills, if they want to improve their written communication skills. So in a business context, for example, if you need to be able to write reports well, if you need to be able to do basic communication where you need to take a lot of data and you need to then transpose that data into information that is easily accessible and understandable on a PowerPoint presentation, for example, or you're working with highly technical content and you need to break that information down. Those are the kinds of services that I offer. And there are a couple of other services that I offer too. So when we speak about copy, it's something that marketers in particular is a word that they'll throw around. So copy is basically anything that is the written word. So if you're reading a cereal carton and you see the advertising on there, so you'll have the jargon, the technical jargon about what's actually in the cereal box, but all the advertorial stuff is copy that somebody had to sit and write. All the beautifully edited and curated content on a billboard, somebody had to write that copy. And more than that, they had to edit that copy so that there are no spelling errors, so that there are no glaring punctuation errors. And those are the skills that people don't realize are so important in terms of your branding as well. It's not all about the visual images. It's actually also about how you express yourself verbally. So that's basically a summary of what my business does, very simplistically. And I am now going to ask my colleagues to please introduce themselves and also introduce what they do. So you guys go ahead. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you very much, Jyoti. My name is Lehan, and I am a web designer, as Jyoti said previously. My business is to try and help business owners, small, medium enterprise business owners, to get themselves online, to get themselves viewed by the public, and to try and gain new leads and also to close new leads without obviously having to speak to someone. So we try and set up a sales funnel online, which is a little bit more easier to operate than to physically speak to every single person that wants to do business with you. And yeah, my business is purely run online. So I'm very lucky. I can work from anywhere. I can work from a Starbucks or from my house or whatever the case may be, which is a cool thing to be able to do. Yeah, but like I said, I try to help business owners to come online and to obviously have a digital presence. But it's very important for me to work with someone like Rudi, who will introduce himself in a few seconds, and with you, Jyoti, to try and make that whole process a little bit more seamless and to get everyone to work together and to give the best solution for a business owner, because they don't have a lot of time on their hands, or free time on their hands, I must say. So that's where I come in.
All right. Hi, guys. I'm Rudi, like Jyoti mentioned. Jyoti, thank you for having us here today. I think it's very cool. So I'm Rudi. I'm from Pretoria. I'm a graphic designer. I've got 12 years experience. I've worked with global brands, and I assist brands with their visuals, corporate identity, and that's basically what I do, graphic design in a nutshell. And I work with people like Lehan, and we form a very good team, and Jyoti as well, being a copy editor, copywriter. So that's me in a nutshell, graphic designer.
Cool. Rudi, I think one of the things that really comes up a lot, and it's something that I think we should explain as well, is what is corporate identity, firstly? So when you talk about corporate identity, the average person has no real idea about what that means. So could you please explain that a little bit?
Well, corporate identity is very big, the definition of corporate identity. But what it boils down to is basically what the first thing that clients will see, which is your logo. And when you've got a meeting with clients, your business card, your letterhead, your email signature. And corporate identity usually also includes your brand colors, which is very, very important. We'll discuss that a bit later as well. But in a nutshell, it usually starts with your logo, which is a very, very important part of corporate identity, because that sort of sets the tone for the rest of your visuals, being the business card, the letterhead, the email signature, and of course the website as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Lehan, so in terms of corporate identity, from your perspective, could you just speak us through why it's important for a web developer to have an idea of where a business wants to go in terms of their corporate identity?
Yeah, so corporate identity is important for us as developers to work from, or to get an idea of what it is that your business is supposed to do. I think a corporate identity is something that creative people have in their arsenal, but me, I'm more a technical person. So for me, if you tell me you want to have something laid out on a website, or you would like a website to do something specifically, I can do that. But to have it look a certain way and to have someone feel a certain way while they're interacting with the website, that is where it becomes a little bit difficult for someone like me to do. And that's where having a corporate identity or a branding guide, which is a synonym that we often try to use, that is something that we use to give us a direction of where we would like to go with the website, and what we would like the website to look like and feel like, as I've said.
Yes. So I think this is a statement that I'm going to make, and then both of you can jump in if you agree or don't agree. But what I often say to clients is your first port of call when it comes to CI is your graphic designer, because I think it's so important that people have a vision that is realized in order for example, you, Lehan, to engage with them in terms of the website and to know what they want in terms of the design, not only in terms of e-commerce, for example, which is another thing we'll discuss later, but just in terms of what kind of market they want. who they are actually dealing with or want to deal with, which client base they want to work with. And then in terms of, from my perspective, in terms of the copy, now, if you tell me, I want copy for my website, or I want you to write up the information for my website, because clients don't always know the technical terms. So I need to know, okay, but who's your market? And what are you trying to aim for? And what is your brand identity in terms of your goals, your mission, your vision? And so much of that actually comes from me looking at their logo, at their CI, at even their slogan. And that's something that they've got to go to Rudi or any graphic designer for beforehand. It's not something that necessarily Lehan or I can imagine, on the button, just sort of realize this is what you want. For me, I think it's so much easier if they've gone to a graphic designer and they've said, okay, this is my business, this is what I do, represent me. So then I can see at a glance, okay, this is sort of what this person wants. And then I ask them questions according to that. So is that something that you would also agree with, Lehan, or not really?
Yes, no, I totally agree with what you said. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not the creative type of person, so it's much easier for me to take what a graphic designer and a client has already worked through. Most of the time, some of the projects that I've worked with Rudi on, you can just get a sense of he said earlier, he has 12 years of experience in the graphic design industry. I mean, a client can come to him and talk to him in a very confused way, and he just has the ability to sort of dissect what the client is saying and to put that into little pockets and to make it a little bit easier for us to understand, and to put through on the website. So so I agree with what you're saying. It's very important for them to talk through that process, because I mean, we can't tell a client what they want or how they should look or what they should sell, or whatever. We just tools that they use in their business to make whatever idea they have realized or a reality. And it's important for them to work with someone like Rudi to get them to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And he obviously dissects and works a little bit deeper than that. And he goes into the color psychologies, and he goes into why a brand has certain fonts and why a brand has certain colors and everything associated with it. So which he can probably speak a little bit more about. But that is the type of things that we need to know, and the brief that we need to get before we actually start with the project. And I mean, a project comes to me after it's been with you, Jyoti. So it's sort of starts with Rudi and then goes to you, and then it comes to me, and I have to get everything. All the creative work should be done, but so that there's no creative pieces left out for me to go and do, because that would be a disaster. So you don't want that to happen. I just give me the creative brief, and then I'll make it happen technically.
Absolutely. So Rudi, can you just talk us through the process that a client goes through when they first call you or contact you, and what it is you're looking out for, and what are the kind of key questions that you need to ask them as a graphic designer, obviously?
I just want to add to Lehan's comment, and he made a few very valid points then. It's designers at the end of the day speak the language of color and imagery. And that's why, when you go to a graphic designer like myself, designers sort of set the tone for how the rest of the brand will look, and that translates over to the business cards, the visuals next to the road, the website. And it's very important that someone like Lehan or any web designer works with a graphic designer, because the graphic designer sort of, like I said, sets the tone for which colors to use, why, what are the reasons for those colors. And designers also assist web designers with the layouts, the fonts, what looks good on the site, what pulls attention or attracts attention. So that's very, very important. But when I start with, or when I get a new client, when a client contacts me, the first thing I do, I don't start up with, do you have a budget? I usually send them a questionnaire. So let's use a a logo, for example, I would send a client a logo questionnaire, and that has the basic questions. What colors do you like? What's the business about? What's the product? What are you selling? And then I would go into more in-depth sort of questions like, who's your target market? Who's your competitor and why? So my briefs for a logo, it can sometimes be 2 or 3 pages, which, to some clients can be a bit lengthy, but I rather ask a lot of questions so that I get a good idea of, what's going on in the client's mind. What is it that what's the vision that they have in their mind that I now need to sort of put on paper? So I ask a lot of questions, and based on those questions, I'm very tough when it comes to the answers that I get, because obviously the better the answers, the better idea I'll have which route to take for the design. So once that is done and I've sent the questionnaire and I get my answers back, I then set up a call with the client. It might be 2 or 3 calls to chat with the client, have a discussion about their answers. What is it that they need? Why did they mention this? Why is it they want that color? It's very important to educate the clients as well, especially when clients talk about what colors they want to use. It's very important to educate the clients on what, color psychology, like Lehan mentioned. But in any case, so once all of that is done, so once all the meetings and the discussions and phone calls is over, the client is ready for me to start. That would obviously go into the quoting and the invoicing and all of that. But anyway, I would then start with exploration. So my exploration usually includes sketching, a lot of sketching, mind mapping, using the answers that the client sent me. I sort of create this mind map with all the words that the client sent me. Now I'm referring to a logo at this stage, but that applies to any sort of design, whether it's business card or something as simple as a letterhead. So I start with that, and that then leads to sending clients rough ideas of the sketches, and sometimes even digital vectorized versions of the sketches. And yeah, the process continues from there. It's quite a lengthy process, but I'm very thorough when it comes to the research I put into the client's business. And before I start any designing, I first do a lot of research.
Yes, I completely agree with you, and I understand, and I know that that's a process that you've gone through with me, with all the logos and business cards that we've done together, as well as the website, because I think this also speaks to the fact that both of you have come back to is you need to have a proper brief at the end of the day. So when we talk about clients' briefs, what we mean is that you as a client need to give whoever you approach, doesn't matter if it's the designer, the copywriter or copy editor, or the website designer, developer, you need to give us some indication of what you want. And the more detail we have, the better. So for example, if you as a client go to Rudi and you say, listen, Rudi, I need to have a logo design. I need to have a complete CI done. And the CI usually means things like your letterhead and your invoice template and whatever else communication-wise that you need done. So Rudi's going to design everything for you in terms of your corporate stationery. And if you say to him, but I also need to have you design my website. So what Rudi does is he will tell Lehan how to lay out the website, but Lehan is the one who actually has to build the website and do all the back end work. So we'll come back to the cheap alternatives of doing this. But my point here is that if you go to Rudi and you say, I need my corporate stationery done and I want everything done properly. And so you need to give him a brief. And then if Rudi comes to me and says, okay, now the client needs to have copy written for this website. They are selling I don't know, bathroom stuff, or some kind of new brand of cereal or whatever, doesn't matter. So then I will say, okay, Rudi, so what brief did they give you? Because I need to have a look at that brief so I know exactly what you as a client want. And then I can then gauge, okay, is this client more sort of fun and quirky? And what is the tone that they're trying to convey? And then I look at Rudi's designs part and I try to discern, okay, this client is obviously going for a market which is much more serious, whereas this other client wants something that's a bit more quirky, a bit more fun, is going for a younger market, perhaps. And I then adjust the copy so that it captures the interest and the attention of that brand, of that market, because there's no use the copy saying something that's completely different to what the image that Rudi has now so carefully created, and the two don't speak to each other. So it works hand in hand. The processes that we go through, we need to work together. And then by the time that goes to Lehan, it needs to, as he said at the beginning, it needs to all be done. So we just literally give it to him and say, okay, Lehan, now you work on the back end and the front end stuff and make this website happen. Yeah, so I think that that's also something, Lehan, if you could just elaborate on your role again from where we give you the final product of in terms of the copy and the graphic design elements.
Yeah, when you guys give me obviously the design elements that you've worked on with the client, I like to get on a call with the client myself, just to find out from a marketing perspective or from a longevity perspective, what it is that they would like to get out of the website. I don't believe that a website is just a brochure or something that you put online and it just markets your business for you, or it's just something that people can go and read or whatever. They are supposed to, or a website rather, is supposed to convert clients for you. So a website is supposed to be something that's generating a business or that's generating income or potential income when you are not there. That is, in a nutshell, what a website is in my mind. So I like to have a conversation with a client just to find out what it is they do. And we normally partner with their marketing team or with a third-party marketing person to try and see how we can set up the website in the best way possible from a technical perspective, so the website converts clients, but also to use the design elements that were issued to us to make it look good. So I believe you can have both a good looking website and a converting website in one. You don't have to settle for one or the other. That is a little bit of a challenge sometimes, but it's a fun challenge nevertheless. So then that is how we work out. We are lucky enough to be able to use a program called WordPress that we use on and that we can upload websites to a live domain, so the client don't have to scroll through images to get an idea of what the website would look like. They can actually get a live website that's actually working, and they can test the website through this process. So they can test it on their mobile phones and on their desktops to give us an idea of if they like it or they don't, because the client obviously also has to like their website in order for them to sell it. It's very difficult to sell a product or to sell a service that you are not 100% behind. So you have to believe in the product or believe in the website before you are able to sell it. So yeah, and then we just take it from there. Normally clients know more or less what they want. By the time they get to me, they've thought about their business in so much depth, thanks to you and Rudi, that they know exactly what they want. And for me to set it up and to get it up and running is then a very easier process. And then we kick off, we make it live, we run promotions and set it up from there. And then there's a lot of ongoing things which are part of all of our businesses at the moment. Continuous newsletters that we are pushing out, and graphic designing, additional things that come after the website. So for the Facebook pages and for the website banners and stuff that gets redesigned, and there's continuous improvements that are being done on the website, as you see people how they work on the website, because you can get a good idea of how a client would react to a site, but you never really know until they start using the site physically, and you get feedback from them, or feedback from someone who doesn't really know how it was set up. That's normally very good feedback, and then we just take it from there and we improve, and we have a lifelong relationship with our clients. We don't have a once-off thing and then they pay the final invoice and then it's goodbye. I don't have any clients like that. So that's my process. That's how I go through it. So you guys actually do all the work. So I must thank you very much for for that. It's very easy when it comes to me.
Well, I remember when I was at varsity, I don't think WordPress was even available yet. I don't know, but we used to use a program called Dreamweaver. Lehan, I don't know if you know Dreamweaver, but you know, every container, every block, every image, you had to write the coding for it. I'm not a web designer at all, but WordPress definitely makes it a lot easier, but it's still, you know, it's still a process and a half to get that website looking as good as, you know, the websites that you offer clients. So, you know, and a lot of clients, they choose a template and they send the template to you, but you know, there's a lot of work that actually goes into making that template translate to what the client wants and what I designed as, you know, or decided on as the brand colors, the brand image, you know, so it does take a lot of work, but it's luckily you don't have to work in something like Dreamweaver, because that was a nightmare, like next level nightmare.
Yes. And so I think like one of the questions that we all get asked a lot is, okay, so why do I need to use your services? Because there are things like Canva around, there are things like Wix, and there are things like Weebly. And it is super frustrating for us because we obviously are not trying to do a client down by saying use our services. We're saying use our services because we're giving you a professional product with our combined years of experience that is going to enable you to attract more clients, that's going to enable you to be customized and customizable, and where we've actually taken your brand choices, your market choices into account. And it's not something that's generic and run of the mill, but it's something that's suited to you. And the more information that you give us, the better that will be. And like you say, Lehan, you know, in a way, we are all invested in our clients' businesses because we want to see them grow. And that's something that's important to us. So anybody can just sell you, you know, a generic product or say, okay, we'll use this free tool. And then people think it's okay to kind of post a design with a watermark on it and hope that that's going to create a professional. Yeah. And unfortunately, they just don't get it. That's not the point of a designer. The designer or the web developer is not trying to rip you off. And somebody who's saying to you, I can write the copy for your website for a couple of $1,000 is not trying to rip you off. There's a lot of research that we have to do beforehand. We've got, not only do we have to speak with you multiple times to make sure that we are basically on line with whatever it is that you want us to produce, but it's also, it takes us time to produce content that you're going to like, because we've got to go and do research. We've got to understand what you need. And it's not something that we just thumbsuck. None of this stuff is thumbsuck. This is stuff that we spent years studying and spent years doing. It's not something that we, you know, are going to create exactly the same for another client. This is all customized for you and your brand. So if you guys can just talk and talk us through your sort of pet peeves, the sort of things that people say when they say that they want to use Canva or they want to use Wix or Weebly, which are all fine. You know, if that's the route that they want to go for, that's okay. But can you just sort of tell us why it's not such a good idea?
Well, I just want to add, when it comes to, for example, layouts, you know, company profiles, big documents, like 50-page documents. My issue that I usually stumble upon is spelling errors and just grammar and the way the clients, I don't know, you know, just the way things are written, it's absolutely terrible. And I mean, I've worked with big companies, and you would think that big companies would invest in someone like you. I mean, it's absolutely, it's so important to use a proper copywriter. Absolutely important, because, you know, I work with you, and it's an absolute dream, because I get copy that is checked, spell checked, the grammar is checked, everything is perfect, and I use that copy, and then I do the, you know, perfect layout. But you know, one of my issues is usually spelling errors and just the way people write their copy, and that's why it's so important to use a proper copy editor and copywriter like yourself. And Lehan, also, you know, for websites, I think me and you have worked on a few websites the past 2 years already, and you know, even some of the text that clients send describing their own business, you know, obviously they didn't use someone, you know, a proper copywriter, and also just someone to do spell checking. I think that's also one of your issues that we've spoken about numerous times before.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm starting to smile now, because a lot of our clients are not native English speakers. They're either Afrikaans, or they are from overseas and they speak Spanish for a living, but they want to have a .com website which speaks to a global audience. But you can pick up on the grammar and the way they formulate a sentence that this person is not a native English speaker. And it's obviously, when you want to promote a business, it is important. And I totally agree with what Rudi said. When Jyoti sends you a document, you know, you can just copy that text, you can paste it in. Even if the text is too long, you can just ask her to shorten it for you, and then you'll find synonyms, or you'll find other ways to communicate the same message, but in a different way. Which just makes it a lot easier. And it is a strange thing, especially when clients look at us as well, to sort of fix their grammar and things for them. I think that's something that I've also found, or that I've had a couple of conversations with clients about, where they will ask me, please, can I fix their spelling errors and stuff for them? And then I'm like, well, I don't trust myself to do it. I'll ask Jyoti. So I would suggest you do the same.
Yeah, and then Jyoti, your question was, you know, when it comes to free programs like Canva or Wix or whatever. Okay, so maybe I've never used Canva before, but I know you can do logos and stuff on it, and I think social media posts and whatever. If I look at logos that clients have done on Canva, you know, from afar, the logos look nice, but it's extremely generic. You know, it's not something, like you said, custom designed. It's not something that you can say is specifically linked to what the client envisioned. They get a set of templates that they're allowed to use, or, you know, icons or pictures or whatever, to add in this logo. And they've obviously got font options and color options, etc., which is, you know, it's easy for someone that doesn't have a big budget and they need a logo right now. So, you know, that might be the route for them to go. But, you know, there's a whole process behind designing a logo. You know, it's not just, you know, drawing a little picture and slapping some color on it, and then handing it to the client and saying, okay, here's your logo, pay me now. It's a whole process behind it. And, you know, graphic designers obviously go, you know, they study for a certain amount of years in order to be able to give you a logo within an hour, maybe, or in a day, or whatever, however long some designers take. But there's a whole thought process that designers go through to give you a proper design. And it's the same with sorry, Lehan, I'm commenting on web design now as well. You know, the website design is not just, Lehan doesn't just go pick any random website to get inspiration from. There's a thought process that goes into it. You know, and if clients use a program like Canva, for example, I can't tell you how many times I received a logo from a client and they asked me, can you change the logo for me? I need the color changed. And I'm like, okay, well, clearly this is a Canva logo or some free program that you used. because some designers can see it instantly, and changing the colors or the fonts and whatever. And then I asked them for the actual design file, because you obviously need the design file in order to do any editing. And 90% of those clients don't have the design file, because these programs don't, these free options online don't offer you that sort of program that you need, or that someone like me needs in order to edit the logo. So, that's obviously a learning curve that the client goes through. And I don't then say, well, I'm going to charge you a whole new logo fee. I obviously just try and assist the client, because they went through their own process now. So I assist them by giving them a little bit of a reduced fee by, for redrawing the logo or redoing it. And then I obviously educate the client on, you see now why this is not the best option. It was free, or you maybe had to pay a small subscription, but it's not the best option. There was no real thought put into that specific logo or whatever design they created on these free programs. So that's my other issue, is getting files from clients to redo, but the clients don't even have the correct files that I can use.
Yeah. And Lehan, in terms of like Wix and Weebly, like what have you got to say about that from a design web development perspective?
From a web development perspective, look, these programs were obviously created for the startup company, the guy who wants to just start selling something out of his garage. And I believe there's a market for it. There's definitely a specific person that could use it and who can find it acceptable to use one of those page builders to get their website up and running. But we have a couple of technical errors and issues that with Wix and with Weebly, that people come to us for help. I'm thinking of SEO, search engine optimization. They come to us and say, hi, I have a website. I want to be on the first page of Google, and I want all these things to happen. Can you make it happen? Here's my Wix login details. And there's a couple of things that they do from a technical perspective, and I don't want to dive too deep into it, but the way the themes and the templates on some of these programs are set up are not very friendly to the Google bots. So the way the text are set up and the way the coding is done, it's very heavy. It tends to be very slow and not very user friendly on all the devices, because the person building the website just builds it on their computer. And if you have a small 13-inch computer, then it's going to look bad on a bigger screen. It's going to look bad on a very small screen. And Google picks up on these things. They pick up on how clickable elements are spaced on a mobile device and all these little technicalities and so on that they're not aware of, and that they just go out and they just build something that looks cool and so on. So it is very difficult to get some of the performance out of the site for these clients if they come to you with a Wix or a Weebly website. But like I said, it's not in everyone's ability to afford a professionally built website. It's not within everyone's ability or within everyone's reach to pay for a professional graphic designer to design a logo. And sometimes your offline brand is strong enough to allow you to do something like that. But if you are serious about your digital footprint and your digital business, and you would like to gain performance, once again, like I said, I don't do online brochures. I don't like to work with clients that don't tend on making money out of their websites. I just think that's a value for myself in my business, and I tend to try and align myself with people that have the same morals and standards in their businesses. And so if that's something that you're looking for, to go cheap and to just get something out there, please, you're more than welcome to use one of those programs. But like I said, it is very difficult to customize and to do integrations. I mean, there's some integrations that are built specifically for Wix and all those things, but I mean, at the end of the day, when you want to have a professional domain and all those things, the costs just add up and add up and add up. And by the end of it, you might as well just ask a professional designer to just do it for you. And you probably would have came out at the same price range or the same pricing bracket. And it would have looked 1,000 times better. So, and you would have been able to spend the last 3 months of your life actually building your business and not spending time trying to figure out what a website looks like. Because that's also something that I think we do, is we take all that off of your shoulders. We just ask you what you want. You just leave it to us and we do it. That's the beauty of this business.
Absolutely. So we did have a couple of questions from various forums. So I asked people to please comment on and ask questions about what they'd like to know from you guys, the experts, about specifically web design and graphic design. So I'm going to read some questions, and you guys are welcome to chip in whenever you want to. So cool. The first one is, I'm looking for a South African web hosting company for a small business website. Does anyone have any good or bad experiences to share?
That's obviously one for me. Web hosting, there's a couple of things. Yeah. Web hosting is a very, the market is extremely saturated. You can Google web hosting and you will find a bunch of pages with web hosts on there. There are a couple of things, once again, that you have to look out for to make sure that Google sees your business or you see your website in a way that is attractive to them. The first of which is an Ssl certificate or a security certificate. Your web host, a basic web host, is supposed to give you a Ssl certificate within their web hosting packages. So it's supposed to be included in a package. Another one is Ssd Storage. So the hard drives that the website and your emails sit on, it's supposed to be at least on an SSD server. That just helps with speed. The difference between an SSD and an HDD, the old hard drives are extremely, I don't want to throw out numbers, but I think it's up to 10 times faster that your website can load. And page speed is a massive thing when it comes to search engine optimization. Google looks at your page speed and they look at your security. I mean, we all know about website security and payment security. Everyone, your passwords are saved on your devices, and you don't want to go onto a website that is able to access those passwords and are then able to access and to sell it. They'll sell it on the black market, and then you'll wake up one day and your money would be gone, or someone would have been able to access your website or your Facebook pages, and yeah, you don't want to go there. So there are a couple of things that you have to look out for when choosing a web host. The cheapest is not always the best, but also in the same breath, the most expensive ones aren't also always the best either. So those are the couple of things that I would say is something to look out for.
Yes, I think that's very good advice because, yeah, I mean, I know that you've spent a lot of time also upgrading all of my websites to make sure that they are secure. And we live in an age where if anybody gets access to your website or to, like you said, to your social media accounts, they can literally do whatever they want with it, and not to mention your bank accounts. So, yeah. I mean, to this day, I worked with an agency where they did not give me access. They didn't give me access to my own accounts. I still have no access. I can't actually access those old accounts at all. So I sit now with an online presence and I've got no control over that whatsoever. So you've got to be so careful who you give access to, and also who's looking out and making sure that everything's actually on board and okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's really, really important, and I feel I need to add it, is that, to use a proper web designer like Lehan. Because Lehan, I get attacks on my server on a weekly basis. You would know. And I mean, if it wasn't for someone like you to sort that out, because you can go in the back end and you can you do stuff. I don't know what you do, but you're very quick, and you're very thorough, and then the attacks are just, you know, they disappear. But that's very important. If I use something like a Wix or you know, one of these free website programs, I wouldn't know how to use it. But I mean, if I did, there would be no support, I guess, because there's not someone like you on the other end of the line giving support, or, you know, being that sort of security for my website or my domain or server or whatever. Just thought I'd add that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And okay, so the second question that we had was, so this was from Alison Kutsia. Shout out to Alison. What kind of techniques can be used to reduce user eye strain? So I think we can talk through from a graphic design and from a web development perspective there. So if you guys would like to comment, please.
Well, yeah, to reduce eye strain, you know, let's focus on fonts, for example. Font sizes, font types, font color. And if, let's say, using fonts on a website specifically, you know, it's very important to know the sort of, I want to say again, color psychology, but, you know, having very fine white font on a pitch black background, that's something that you know, it's not good for the eyes, because your eyes need to strain in order to read that text. And that's colors, you know, using yellows and greens together. Those are very sharp colors for the eyes. And remember, your screen is also very bright already, so you don't want to strain your eyes even further with bright colors as well, and fine fonts. You know, then font sizes, especially on websites, very, very important, because, you know, you don't want your client to sort of, you know, put their nose up against the screen in order to read something. It strains their eyes. So when it comes to websites and layouts, bigger, bolder fonts, colors, for example, it reduces the eye strain a bit. And use complementary colors, I'd say, as well. You know, using bright colors that don't match each other is also very bad for your eyes. But Lehan, you know, on the websites we've done, you know, we always, the first thing me and you look at is the font sizes, and will someone be able to read this? You know, is it appropriate color on this background, for example? You know.
Yeah, the fonts are definitely one of the bigger things, because obviously that's why people go onto the website, is to read what the content that you've set out for them to read. I think some of the other techniques that we use is white space. So we try to use white space not only to give the eyes time to rest and to digest what it just saw, but also to make certain parts of the website stand out a little bit more. You use white space to communicate a group of content. So when you have a title and some content and you have a button below it, you use white space to communicate that this is something, or this is an element by itself, and this is another element by itself. So there's a lot of ways to communicate those type of things that are purely psychologically, or purely from a psychological perspective. Something that's been popping up over the last couple of years is obviously designs or websites that are used on mobile devices. So mobile is being used way more frequently than desktop at this stage. And with a mobile device, something that I haven't thought of before I saw this video on YouTube is that people tend to use their right hand more to scroll through a website. So if you have a button somewhere on the left-hand edge of the screen, left top edge, or on the left-hand side of the screen, it's something like 80% less likely to be clicked on, just because it's a little bit more effort for someone to do this. So it's also a technique that we use, is try and, on a mobile device, keep the button on the right-hand side of the screen where it's easy for people to click on. If there's something that you want them to click on, if there's something that you want them to see, but they don't really have to click on it, then you can put it out of reach, then it's fine. But to get back to Alison's question with regards to eye strain, I think, like Rudi said, not to have something very bright, not to have something that's very colors that are screaming at you from a distance. You don't want that to happen, and you don't want colors that are not complementary to each other, or that's difficult to read. You don't want to squint to be able to. I don't know if you guys remember those blocks with the circles, and then they have numbers within the circles, or it's also numbered circles to test color blindness. So you don't want to test people's color blindness when they're on the site. You want it to be totally opposite colors from one another. If you want something to stand out, you make it look like danger, or you make it look like it should stand out. And yeah, those are some of the techniques that we use. I think it's not rocket science or new things that we found out. It's just the way, or it's a way to physically apply it on a website in a classy way, or in a way that goes with your brand. That's very important, is to be aware of these techniques and then to apply it.
Yeah, and I think linking to the part where Lehan said white space is very important. Physical breaks in between certain parts of design is also very important on a website and in layouts, annual reports as well, and even brochures. Having text upon text upon text, it's not good. People firstly become bored after a few minutes of continuous reading. So sort of reward the eyes a bit with something, a pleasant visual. Whatever the brochure is about, if it's about cupcakes, put a picture of a cupcake after a few paragraphs. Let the eyes rest a bit, look at the picture, and etc. Then continue with reading. A lot of people want to cram in as much info as possible on one web page, for example. Because they feel the more they say, the more clients they'll get, which is actually the opposite. Less is better. So brochures as well, annual reports, just have a bit of text, group the text, like Lehan said, have some white space, and then also reward the eyes with something, a picture or whatever. And that also promotes the brand a bit if it's a product or whatever.
And just from a publishing perspective, we use white spaces in books just so that the eyes can have a rest, because as Rudi is saying, the eyes do need to rest on something. We can't read continuously. Otherwise our eyes do become strained. And on a website now, when you've got that bright screen and you're trying to read all of this text, it's ridiculous. And so, yeah, I mean, that's also another reason we use white space on a website. And the other thing that I asked Rudi and Lehan to look at for my own websites, especially when it comes to the blogs, is using a serif font. So a serif font is basically a font which has little curly bits to the letters. It's not the straight letters that you see in a normal sans serif font. So a sans serif we usually use in publishing. From a publishing point of view, we use that more in technical textbooks, or in textbooks where we're using a lot of math and engineering. But for textbooks and in this case, websites where there's a lot of reading to be done, our brains and our eyes obviously are super interconnected. And it helps our brains to read better when we use that kind of font. So that's also something you need to bear in mind. And I'm sure Rudi and Lehan will agree with you. They've seen so many websites where people use absolutely revolting fonts, like Comic Sans, for example. And
does that font even exist anymore?
Some people love it. Some people love it. So that's also another thing that we should be mindful of. Sorry, so to move on to the next question. Number 3, what characteristics make a website easy for the eyes to process? So I think we've basically covered that one. Is there something else that you guys want to add there?
I just asked a question.
I think
again.
Oh, sorry, did you lose me there? Apologies. Let me just get to it again. What characteristics make a website easy for eyes to process?
Lehan, that's your cue.
Yeah, I found when you look at Google's analytics on a website, that websites that are more image based, or not image based per se, but that use images in a better way, people are, for some reason, more prone to scrolling all the way down the page and eventually clicking on the call to actions, in comparison to websites that are just text heavy, where you don't give them. So what we tend to do is use images that are related to whatever product or service, or when you're starting to talk about the morals and the values, to use icons, that Rudi are also very good at designing, by the way, to use icons to just link icons or to link graphics to whatever the person is looking at. So we obviously are getting bombarded with content the whole time. So whether you are on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, I mean, even Twitter has moved from a text only platform to people start posting videos and photos with their tweets, just to get some attention, even if it's just a picture with a title on it, and then the content of what the tweet actually is in the body text. But those are the type of websites that are actually getting a lot of good, or that we're getting a lot of good feedback from, is websites that use images and icons very strategically. Those websites are doing very, very well, and it just looks beautiful when you look at the website. From when you zoom out of the website 100%, then you can just see it looks very nice. And a website that looks nice just converts better. People just feel more at home with the brand. They connect with you more. I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, but I can only imagine there's a lot of psychology going on when you're looking at something beautiful in comparison to when you're looking at something that looks like work to interact with.
Yeah, look, when you open a website, it's, you know, if there's a beautiful image at the top in the header, for example, if it's a very inviting sort of photo, I can guarantee you the clients will automatically start scrolling down. And usually if you use an image where the clients can relate to, that's even better. You know, so if it's let's say a bakery website, and you have visuals, the first thing that someone sees is the visuals of the bread and the cupcakes and everything that's all steaming and it looks beautiful. You know, that's very inviting, and people want to see that. People would rather look at pictures instead of reading. You know, so if you start your website out with a bunch of text, you're going to immediately lose that client. But if you start out with visuals and everything's so colorful, you know, it's also very important when you look at having black and white photos on a website or colorful photos. People lean more towards websites that have colorful, bright images and colors, you know. So very important to start a website off with a beautifully designed header banner, for example, and not a small one, but a proper size banner that people can maybe click on and zoom into. Like on your website, Jyoti, you know, for example, the first image people see is of someone writing, you know, so that already sets the tone. And then, you know, your logo flies in, and that's, you know, it's a beautiful teal turquoise sort of color, which is already inviting as well. I don't know, Lehan, do you agree?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so I'm going to continue with the questions, but I think like this is actually tying in precisely with what you've just said, because so just to preface the questions, I actually trust these two so much that once I give them the brief and I give them a proper brief, I actually let the project go. And unless they ask me for specific feedback, I trust them that they will know, and they do know what they're doing. So I don't even have to worry about it. Once I've drawn up the brief and I've given them the content to populate, and I've given them an understanding of who it is that I need to market to, I let this project go. And I only come into it again after Lehan's basically put everything on the website. And then I go and proofread that website and say, okay, please, can you just change some of these words? I made an error here or there or whatever. So I only proofread it at the end, and then the thing's live. So I let go of the project. So when I have asked Rudi to do the design for me, like he basically redid my entire corporate identity for various reasons. But yeah, it was a complete rebrand. And I trusted him because he knows me as well. And we had spoken a lot before. And I told him, this is what I want to communicate. So that's the beauty of hiring professionals to work on your site. This is why you can trust them with your site. And once you have a good relationship with them, and if you don't feel comfortable with somebody, then don't hire them. First, find out, are there clients that you can get testimonials from? Are there other people you can speak to? What is their portfolio? So ask them, say, listen, can you please send me your portfolio? Can you send me the details of clients that you've worked with before who wouldn't mind talking to me? And any professional would be very happy to give you those details. So go and have a proper look before you do anything. Make sure you're happy with that professional, that supplier that you're going to work with, and then you can move from there. So this ties into what I've just said. So I'm going to tie these two questions together, Rudi, because they're for you. And I think that they're pretty similar, and also different aspects that you can touch on there. So why should I hire a graphic designer? And what can a graphic designer do that I can't do?
Well, it's a tough question, but I'm going to try and answer it in a nutshell. So as I said earlier, designers basically speak the language of color and imagery. And the good thing about a designer is we adapt to growing trends, because as you know, you have to stick with the trends. What's in today might not be in tomorrow. So designers are very good at adapting to new trends. Designers are basically creative problem solvers. So and we bring recognition to your brand. It's a designer's job to take care of the client and listen to their vision and to what they envision their product or brand to look like. And then with our skills and expertise, obviously expand on that idea and basically bring it to life and create magic. So to answer your question, what can a graphic designer do that I can't do? Graphic design requires a certain thought process and method of how can I say, execution. It's a graphic designer's job to develop the whole brand language for a company, and it's a very versatile discipline. It's like asking if anyone can be an architect, or let's go to the other side of the spectrum, a doctor even. It's completely different, but I mean, that requires a certain set of skills and a certain thought process, and that is why designers go to university or varsity to learn these techniques and these skills, which is very important, because like I said earlier on, there's a whole thought process behind designing a logo. For some clients, it's they think that it's a little scribble or a little sketch, and you slap on some color and you're done. But it's not. There's really a very lengthy thought process and steps to follow in order to get that logo to look the way it's looking, and to have it link up to what the client actually envisioned. There are obviously a lot of free online courses for graphic design. Nowadays you can go onto YouTube and you can, I don't know, type in design 101 and get an hour's worth of tutorial on how to do the basics in design. But it still doesn't make you a graphic designer, because graphic designers they have this passion for design. You've got to have the passion and drive to do design. It's not something that everyone can do. Obviously, a lot of people think they are creative and they are designers if they've got the program. But it's if we refer back to logo designs, for example, I follow certain steps from exploration that includes research to sketch work to vectorization, which is now making it digital. A lot of research goes into it, and not a lot of people have got the time to do that. But that's what I love to do. I love to get my claws in there and do the research and look at color psychology and So it's not for everyone, and that's why it's important to use a graphic designer, because they've just got that extra set of skills, and they know about color psychology, which we'll also talk about. And they've obviously got ways of doing things quicker, and more thoroughly. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm speaking for the person who asked that, but to me that does answer the question. Yes. So I had another very interesting question, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. It says, I feel very strongly about my favorite color, which is red, and want to use it in my CI and logo. Can you incorporate it?
Red specifically?
Yes, that's what the question says.
All right. So when we talk about colors in branding, and that includes logos, business cards, printing, websites, you have to talk about color psychology. It's very, very important. And people ask, well, what is color psychology? It sounds so technical. It's just basically the understanding of how colors determine human emotions and behaviors, because colors obviously evoke emotions. Colors affect emotions in various ways. So it's important to know what colors work. I mean, you can have a beautifully designed logo. The layout can be spectacular, but if the colors that you use aren't correct, and specifically for that field of work that they are in, then it's pointless. The logo layout then doesn't matter really. Obviously, I know a lot of brands abroad now create black and white logos, which is fine. But when it comes to a color logo, you need to use colors specifically. Now, it's very hard to work with a client that has a personal connection to a logo, to a color to be used in the logo. For example, I presume that client likes red, because it might be a good attachment to the color, it might be a bad attachment to the color, but it's a designer's job to educate the client on why certain colors don't work. And when a client has a personal attachment to a logo, it's difficult to steer them away from it, but we give our reasons and we have to, it's our job. But for example, a spa logo, you wouldn't use the color red, for example, in a spa logo, because a spa that is where you go to relax. That is, you need to be calm. You gather your thoughts. It's, you think of the colors blue and turquoise and teal and all of that. You wouldn't use a color like red or even yellow or even orange in such a logo specifically, because those colors link more to danger or warning. I mean, you wouldn't drive next to a road and there's a pothole with a sign next to it that is in turquoise saying danger. I mean, you're not gonna, it needs to be a bright, dangerous sort of color, which is now obviously red. So it depends what business this person who asked the question is running, but red also links to energy, for example. So if it's a fitness brand, for example, then yes, red might work, but really depends what brand this client or even product this client has. But color psychology is very, very, very important. If you think, for example, of the color green, a lot of people would rather use something as the color green in plant-based sort of products, or company that links to wealth because it's growing, because you obviously see a plant grow. So people link the color green with growth. And, when it comes to the colors blue, you think of the sky because it's a sunshiny day. It's a happy color. It's calming. It's relaxing. You look up into the sky when you're lying on the grass, for example. So color psychology is very, very important because it links to what sort of emotion you are going to awaken in the client, for example.
And I think also, just to add to what you're saying with the color red specifically, you've got to be culturally aware of, for example, I mean, you wouldn't use that if you're working with Asian clients necessarily, because in Japan, if you use red, or even if you just write text in red, it means that you want that person to die. So like you've got to be very careful about cultural associations as well and who your market is. So that's also something that clients need to be aware of. And yes, and this is why you also need to hire professionals to work on your brand, because they know all of this and it's not something that they just thumb suck. And if you don't know, if you're not aware of all of these things, the professional that you choose to work with, it's their job to research this. And that's why it's so important to share as much information as possible with them so that they know beforehand, before they embark on any kind of creative endeavor. And it's just the importance of having a proper brief again, which we've spoken about ad nauseum. So I think what I'm going to do is I will compile a brief template that people can download that's going to make it easier for people like Rudi and Lehan to work with you. And you can use this template when you work with them. And I'll give an example of a template that I've done before, which both Rudi and Lehan have approved. So at least that's something that I know that they'll agree with. And thanks very much for watching. If you have any other questions for us, please drop them below the video and we will get back to them in another session. And I would like to thank you both very, very much for your time and for being here today. And thank you for your expertise. I really would not be here today without the both of you. So I really appreciate everything. And yes, we will be back for another session sometime soon. So thanks so much, guys. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.